going to say there are some things you can do too as a retailer to help you potentially prosecute somebody that brings in one of these IDs. We've seen other communities make it a requirement for forensic scanners. For example, Watford City has it as a requirement that they have to use forensic scanners at their retail establishments. And some of the things that they also do is require a security camera and a high definition security camera. And then they've talked to the prosecutor to say, hey, what are we going to need in order to prosecute the kids who use these fake IDs? And they said, have two cameras, have one that shows the image of the person bringing in the ID, and have the other one showing the image of the scanner, so that they can match up the image of the youth that's using the ID and the scanner and what's coming up on the scanner, because then that makes it enough of their evidence for them to actually prosecute and put charges onto the person who's using the fake ID. So there are some things you can do in your establishment to help with the prosecution of fake IDs. But even for a kid who uses this and loses it, that's also a penalty as well, because these aren't very cheap. Anywhere from $50 to, again, $250 to $300 for one of these IDs. That's a kind of a penalty right there if they even just confiscate it. So it's really important that if you have any reasonable suspicion that it's fake, confiscate the ID, because it's in law that allows you to do that. Even if it doesn't feel quite right and the kid's like screaming at you, if that's reasonable suspicion, you can confiscate that ID and contact law enforcement. And they can scream at you all they want. It's in law. So.
Okay, well, we will conclude. I want to thank everyone for your time and your attendance today, and I also like to thank all of our speakers for your time and sharing your knowledge for us. And any additional questions, please join us out in the hallway. Thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you. That was great. Good. Very good. It's 1:39 and we're a little behind schedule, so we apologize for that. We want to thank everybody that participated in the panel and everybody that attended. That was very good. Thank you, Robin and Steve for organizing it. That was a good thing. And to combine the two things, I think that was a great thing. So thank you for doing that, Steve. We have quite a few items on the agenda, so we will begin with agenda item number 1, approve minutes of the December 18th, 2024 regular meeting. We have the minutes in front of us, and if there are any changes or corrections, otherwise we'll accept a motion.
So move.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. And I will say Bob is joining us on the phone, and so we do have 4 members here today. Just one is on the phone. And so with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, review liquor applications. 2A is a transfer of a Class A license, 518 Properties LLC, doing business as 518 Properties, located at 4609 33rd Avenue South, and it's an ownership change, and Steve Sprague will start us off.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just I wanted to make a comment too. We remember our last meeting, John Stibbe it was his last meeting. We did appoint a new member, but he previously had a conflict, or he had something scheduled, and so the new member is Mark Doyle. And Mark is someplace that's a lot warmer than it is here in Fargo, and he did feel bad that he wasn't able to be with us at the first meeting here. And also before we get going here, I want to say too, thanks to Robin for the the event on the ID scanners. She's the one that coordinated all that. I had nothing to do with it. So and it was really a good meeting, and I hope that everybody got some information out of that was useful. Okay, so for 518 Properties, the story or the history with this property, this was Summit Nightclub at one time. The license ended up in Tyler Brandt and a couple of other associates that were with him. At this point, Tyler Brandt is transferring it to his name, and then he's working on a future idea but sometimes these developments take a little bit of time to come to fruition. At this time, he wants to get the license in his name, and then when he gets this new concept in place, then he would do a transfer to the ownership group that would be involved with that. So we have done the background check, and there were no issues of concern that were raised in the background check. And it comes to the Liquor Control Board with a recommendation from the chief for approval.
Very good. So are there any comments or questions about this transfer? Otherwise, we will accept a motion.
I'd move to approve.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2B, transfer of a Class A license from Borrowed Bucks to No Blue LLC, doing business as Live at Uptown, Maine, to be located at 2850 Uptown Way. Steve.
Yeah, just as this says, thank you, Commissioner. This is a transfer from Borrowed Bucks. Remember, Borrowed Bucks closed probably 2 years ago, asked for extension in time from 25/15/12 to be able to, using the license to actually be able to find a buyer and to sell it. It took a while. They did secure this group that wants to build this new facility. We have the application in, we've done the background check. The only thing, there is a comment on there from the police regarding the credit history for both the owners. We think that there's, some misinformation that's on there. And so at this point, there is nothing on the criminal history. We're going to do a little bit more research on that credit history. It just doesn't seem quite right, I guess. But with that in mind, we would recommend approval. And then we're going to look into that credit history so we get the right information, accurate information on the recommendation sheet.
Very good. Do we have any comments or questions? The background check was clear, and so the police didn't have any questions, correct?
Correct. No, nothing on the criminal history, and even on the credit history, there's no comment on that other than, the comments that are made within the written text there. And it just, I don't know. We just want to do a little bit more research on that just to make sure that we've got the right information being shown on the report there.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we will accept a motion.
I will make the motion.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And 2C is transfer of an FA golf license from Spirit Properties to Edgewood Tavern LLC to be doing business as Edgewood Tavern to be located at 19 Golf Course Road. Steve.
This is the golf course Edgewood Golf Course up north. And if you follow our golf course licenses, the history of our ownership in any one license has not been real great. They don't seem to last for a long time. We have the person that has been running this for a couple of years now, and knows that they can, they'll be able to run the business in a way that is appropriate and be able to make a good living out of this golf course. And so they've come to an agreement with Spirit Properties, with the person that was listed as the owner of this license, and they're requesting a transfer, to them and take it out of Spirit Properties. We've done the background check. There were some credit history issues here, sorry, I lost my place here. Couple of criminal history items too that again are probably a little bit dated. And then again, a credit history item that were, with some past due accounts and some of that kind of stuff. But in the end, we do have a recommendation of approval from the chief and the police department.
I guess the thing that's troubling to me is like for both of them, there was like, well, I forgot to mention this, by the way. And to me, that's not a good way to start out your relationship with the police and with the city of Fargo, because basically both of them had the same thing happen. So that, to me, that's not a good thing. That's just my own editorial comment. And I know the police looked at it, and I know they were from a long time ago, but.
And I will say that, we have a working relationship because they've been the manager for quite a while, both with Side Street over here and with Edgewood Tavern. And, we find them to be maybe a little forgetful, but very truthful. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but anyway, it doesn't, when we read this stuff, we didn't think that there was out of context with the individual that was applying.
Steve, you're a lot nicer than I am because you made it sound like it was. I'm just saying that's just not good. Just to say that they're forgetful, I think you're being very generous. So, but anyway, does anybody else have any comments or questions? But on the flip side, everyone makes mistakes and life goes on, and some of them were a long time ago, but still. Come on now, Steve, you're way nicer than I am, that's not a newsflash. All right. Any other comments or questions?
No, sir.
Do we have a motion?
I have a question.
Fire
I have
away.
a question, Commissioner. Yeah, is it going to operate as food and beverage and beer cart as in the past, or is this alcohol service only?
No, it's full. They're going to have the food, a beverage. They're going to meet all the requirements of the FA Golf, which is 25% food sales during the summer, and then during the winter times when the golf course isn't operating, it's 50%. Now, part of the way that he's going to do that, he's got a real, I guess, close to thriving or a substantial catering business, and so he's going to be able to run his catering business out of that and include those food sales for that. So, but yes, he'll meet all of the requirements. He's fully aware of what they are. There will continue to be a very heavy food presence up at that facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'd move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, Police Department Monthly Report with Chief Cebulski. And Chief, I wanted to thank you for being here. I appreciate that. I thought it was a very productive thing, and thank you for sharing your perspective. And I think a lot of people appreciate you being here. That's very, so thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for hosting that, and to Robin for putting that together, because I think we can't emphasize that enough. And we'll start to change some culture maybe to make things a little better for everybody. So very good presentation. Happy to be part of that. Liquor reports, not too many. A couple of interesting, kind of concerning situations here. You'll note the. Well, first, I'll start on a positive note and give kudos to Jim Swanek at the Bismarck. We had an incident we got sent to there in which one of the bartenders was intoxicated, and someone called in because they got into a scuffle. And I spoke with Jim about this yesterday. He already had taken action against that employee, which, again, nice to have that level of cooperation. Some cities have ordinances prohibiting bartenders from drinking while they're on duty. We don't. But this is the second incident like this we've had in the past couple of months where we have intoxicated people behind the bar. So just for your edification, but appreciate Jim taking action on that. And then we had another concerning situation with an over-serving potentially at a location where we have a pending incident from a few months back. But as you're aware, we've got an appeal, the windbreak appeal on over-serving. So we have kind of been holding off on taking additional action. So I just want to bring that to your attention. But what I can tell you at this juncture is that this individual was inside, was extremely inebriated, started vomiting on herself as they were carting her away in the ambulance. We're still trying to do a little follow-up on it, but it is the second incident in maybe 3-4 months. I'd have to check to be sure, but just wanted to bring that to your attention.
So Chief, if you don't mind me asking you kind of about the presentation, so that with the underage, is there things that we could do as a city commission or as a city for the minors? Because right now we confiscate the IDs, which is good, but do you get what I'm saying? I mean, I know go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I think you have to get, I guess, the engagement of the industry, because I think if you're really going to get this across the board, as was mentioned, I think Watford City, we really need to kind of maybe put something in ordinance to require this for certain establishments. Maybe it doesn't make sense for all of them when you have a restaurant bar. You know, that's a whole different discussion. But if you're just looking at your standard nightclub bar things, and this is a standard practice in a lot of cities, and if that's part of it, again, you're going to push those people who are using fake IDs to some other location. And just as we see the locations now using scanners, they're not having as many instances because people are staying away and they're finding the place where they can get away with it. It's like wherever the cop sits and runs radar, you take another route, right? So it's the same philosophy.
I just think we're improving, and I just think we want to encourage everybody to have one of those scanners. From my perspective, it's just a good procedure. I think it's complementary to checking IDs and server training and all the things together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think over the past several years, there's been a huge improvement in a lot of things within establishments that we're maybe seeing 4 or 5 years ago. Even on the over-serving piece, I mean, those instances have dropped significantly. We don't have nearly as many. We used to have quite a few. And the underage issue, I mean, it was out of control in some places, right? So, I think we're making good progress.
Yep.
Just a couple of highlights here on just calls for service, which don't necessarily have anything to do with the establishment itself, but this report we just went over. One of the things that has been brought up in conversation is the bar check situation. And so, as you're aware, every 3 months, right, Robin says, we do the compliance checks with public health, where we go in with someone who is underage and they attempt to get served. They, in a lot of instances, show their ID showing they're underage and they still get served, or the person doesn't even ask for ID. You see those come through, and we're still seeing, violations there just in those little touch points. But what's interesting when you look at, and so in addition to that, our officers, because it is a licensed premise by the city, have the right and authority to go in at any point and walk through and make sure that everything's fine, there's no violations, et cetera. We don't have any underage people, any overserved patrons. That is part of that administrative right of inspection. But you can, if you look at this chart, you'll see how those have come down quite a bit as well. And I think in large part because we, focused on the places we were having issues, and we've been able to reduce those. So, it's I think that's mostly positive data there. And we appreciate the cooperation that we do get with the vast majority of our establishment owners and reporting things to us and things of that nature. So I think that's going well, but there was a question about how many bar checks are being conducted, and our 2025, well, we don't have too much in 25, and it's pretty cold right now, but monthly comparison too on the liquor enforcement forms. That might not be the E, but I can't remember at the moment. But you'll see also that those are situations where we're at a licensed premise and there's some issue that we're documenting. So the occurrences there have gone down also. And we still are getting sent to places. If you go back to the calls for service, we still get calls for service. But in many instances, it doesn't have anything to do with the establishment's issues. It's issues that happen there by virtue of people. So I think that's also good data. Really nothing too significant there. So a lot of really low numbers on that presentation so far. And we'll just kind of keep you updated on that.
So from just the overall, I would say we're making gradual progress.
I think we're making really good progress. Yeah, I mean, the amount of significant instances in licensed premises. I mean, this report used to have, and I know it's cold and it's January, but even 2 and 3 Januaries ago, we'd have many more instances. So I think that we're making good progress there. Collectively, the establishments, police, everyone's working well together.
And just to say it one more time, the scanners, we have several still available. It's free. And if nothing else, just to try it and see how it performs for you. And so we would encourage everybody, and really it's whether it's big or small, it's a benefit. So anyway, just want to encourage people. Obviously, we can't require somebody to do it, but it's been, the people that I've talked to, they've been very pleased with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you very much, Chief. That's it. And we have 4A is review penalties for minors entering a bar. And actually, we kind of just talked about that. And Nancy, I have a question for you. So basically, we were talking a little bit, the state is set some of those, and so a lot of it is out of our control. You know, I mean, there's really, we have to require, or we have to follow what the state does. We can't do anything stricter. So I don't know if that, and actually we kind of talked about that earlier too. Sorry to put you on the spot, but if you would, it might be repetitive, but just to talk about, you know, the state has rules and we have to follow those.
Right, so as we discussed earlier, there's 3 different levels of offenses: Class B misdemeanors, infractions, and non-criminal. The city can always have a similar offense be a lesser category. So if the state has a Class B, we can have an infraction or a non-criminal, but we can never have more. I was able to look quickly at our most common offenses: minor in a liquor establishment, minor in possession, consuming in public, and fake ID. And it looks like all those, what the city has, are consistent with what the state has. I don't believe that there are any that the city could increase the level to mimic the state. So I don't know if there's any other penalties that we could increase, at least with the most common ones that I see.
So thank you for that. I know you did a great job with the presentation earlier, but just wanted to repeat that I mean, the city, we want to make sure we're on the same page with the state and following the same procedures. So I don't know if there was anything to really add to that, Steve. That was on there, 4A, and then 4B was the food compliance updates. Do you want to take that away?
Yes, sir. Well, just again, you know, that with the penalties with the minors entering the bar, that they're 2 separate categories. They're the penalties that apply to the minor, but if that minor gets served or, you know, is found on the premise through a compliance check or something like that, then there are administrative penalties that apply to the business, right? I know that the goal or the wish would be to find a way that we can apply some kind of a penalty to the minor, but unless the, you know, law enforcement shows up and charges them and that type of stuff, it's virtually impossible to actually find out who that minor was.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And I know the police are very busy, and so they only have limited resources, and so I think everybody realizes that. But the main thing that we want the establishments, we want you to collect the IDs, because really, if they're $200, that's a bit of a penalty right there.
Right.
And so, but from the establishment's perspective, we want you to collect them and then turn them onto the police, and that's what they can do to kind of help the problem at this point. That's kind of the main thing.
That's correct.
Okay.
So on to the food compliance. We did get our final report on that. 26 out of 29 passed with no questions. One of those businesses had gone out of business, so they weren't able to test it. One of the businesses they didn't get a response from. I emailed them and said, you need to provide this information, and they responded to me right away. I do know that one business has been having a little bit of like some management issues and stuff like that, and so I think maybe that's why they didn't respond to the accountants. And then there was one where they only allow the minors in a certain section of their facility, and they were able to provide the information that showed what the sales are in that section. And so overall, we're doing really good on the food sales. The people that are required to have them are meeting that requirement. We've got the initial report back on the server training, and it's initially the first glance at it. It looks a lot like it did last year, with quite a few that didn't hit that 100%. And so I'm just kind of starting to look into, do we have people on there that are really you know, a dishwasher or a cook and they shouldn't have been included, you know, some of that kind of stuff. So I hope to have more information on that for you,
Okay.
you know, in the near future.
Okay, very good.
And that's all I've got.
So with the food review, then you randomly select a section each year, correct? And we try to rotate that around.
That's correct. We try to do between 30 and 35. You know, I know my initial selection that went over, I think had 33, and we ran into a few businesses that had gone out of business, and so, of course, they're not in business anymore. They don't have to meet that requirement, so.
Right, okay.
So the business that didn't respond but then responded to you via email, what would have happened if they didn't respond to you?
It would have been considered a failure.
Okay.
Yeah, so I suspected that that was the case. I know the prior year, and we had this discussion before we entered into the engagement with the accountants, with the accounting firm. They got a little frustrated trying to chase down people, and they said, okay, can we come to an agreement that we'll try once or twice, you know, and so that's what they did. And then after that, they just said, okay, we didn't get a hold of these people, and so we're going to call it a failure. And then they kind of turned it over to me, and I maybe had better contact information or something. Anyway, I was able to contact them and got a response right away. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. That's everything on the agenda, unless there's anything else to add. Otherwise, thank everybody for attending today and have a good afternoon. We are adjourned.